Commander Jake Morrison was having what he thought would be a quiet Tuesday night shift at Luna Base. The communication center hummed with its usual background noise of deep space chatter and routine status updates. Jake sipped his coffee and watched the endless stream of data flowing across multiple screens. That's when everything changed. A bright red alert suddenly blazed across his main display, accompanied by an urgent beeping sound that made his heart skip. The message coming through was breaking up badly, crackling with interference, but Jake could make out enough to know this wasn't good news. Someone was calling for help from Kepler Research Station, and they sounded desperate. "What's the situation, Lieutenant?" Jake asked Amy Parker, who was already pulling up the transmission details on her workstation. Amy frowned as she worked through the static-filled message. "Sir, it's coming from Kepler Station in the Hellfire Nebula. The transmission keeps cutting out, but I'm hearing words like attack and overwhelming force. The automatic distress beacon is definitely active." Jake felt his stomach tighten. Kepler Station was one of humanity's most isolated research outposts, built in a region of space so dangerous that most alien species wouldn't even fly through it. The radiation levels alone could kill most galactic citizens in minutes. "Have you forwarded this to the Galactic Council?" he asked. Amy nodded, but her expression wasn't encouraging. "Yes sir, but they've already responded. They're calling it a false alarm. According to their analysts, quote, no intelligent species would be foolish enough to launch an attack in such a hazardous region. They think it's just equipment malfunction." Jake stared at the readouts showing the nebula's deadly radiation signatures and the dangerous gravitational anomalies that surrounded Kepler Station. The aliens were right about one thing: it was incredibly dangerous out there. But that's exactly why humans had built the research station in that location. While other species saw only death and destruction, human scientists saw opportunity. The Hellfire Nebula contained rare elements and energy patterns that couldn't be studied anywhere else in the galaxy. The extreme conditions that would instantly kill most alien life forms were just another workplace hazard for human researchers who had grown up on a planet where hurricanes, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions were considered normal weather. "Pull up the full message again," Jake ordered, leaning closer to Amy's screen. As the garbled transmission played through the speakers, Jake caught fragments of voices shouting over weapon fire and explosions. Between the static, he could make out panicked reports about unknown ships with advanced weapons. The most chilling part came near the end, when a woman's voice clearly said, "This is Dr. Helen Chang at Kepler Station. We are under attack by unknown hostiles with overwhelming firepower. Our defenses are failing. We are requesting immediate assistance from any Deathworld forces in the area." The word Deathworld hit Jake like a punch to the gut. In galactic terminology, that meant Earth. The aliens had given humanity's home planet that name because they considered it impossibly hostile to life. To them, any species that could evolve and thrive in Earth's harsh environment had to be incredibly tough. "Amy, how long ago was this message sent?" Jake asked. "The timestamp shows it was transmitted 4 hours ago, sir. Given the distance and the interference from the nebula, it probably took this long to reach us." 4 hours. Jake's mind raced as he calculated response times. If Kepler Station was really under attack, every minute counted. The research facility had some defensive capabilities, but it wasn't built as a military installation. It was designed to withstand the natural hazards of the nebula, not an enemy assault. "Get me Admiral Davis on the priority channel," Jake commanded. "Emergency authorization code Alpha 77. Amy's fingers flew over her console as she established the connection. "Sir, the Admiral is going to want to know why we're escalating this when the Galactic Council has dismissed it." Jake looked at the star charts showing Kepler Station's position deep within the Hellfire Nebula. No alien rescue ships could reach it in time, even if they were willing to try. The radiation would fry their systems long before they got close enough to help. "Because, Lieutenant, we're the only ones crazy enough to fly into that nightmare and bring our people home." The communication system chimed as Admiral Davis's voice came through the speakers. "Morrison, this better be good. What's the emergency? Admiral, we've received a distress call from Kepler Station. They're under attack by unknown hostile forces. The Galactic Council thinks it's a false alarm, but the evidence suggests otherwise. There was a brief pause before the Admiral responded. Send me everything you have, Commander. If our people are in trouble out there, we're going to get them out. Jake felt a surge of pride. This was why he served in the human fleet. While other species played it safe and calculated odds, humans had a simple rule: nobody gets left behind. As Amy transmitted the data to Admiral Davis, Jake could already imagine the massive war machine that would soon spring into action. Within hours, Earth's most powerful warships would be racing toward the Hellfire Nebula, ready to face whatever threat awaited them. The aliens might think humans were crazy for building a research station in such a deadly place. But they were about to learn that humans were even crazier when it came to protecting their own. Admiral Rebecca Davis had been in the middle of reviewing supply reports when Commander Jake Morrison's emergency transmission reached her personal quarters. Now, just 3 hours later, she stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant watching the most impressive display of human military power she had ever seen. 200 warships floated in perfect formation around Earth's orbital stations. Each vessel represented the pinnacle of human engineering, built specifically for missions that would be considered suicide runs by any other species in the galaxy. The ships weren't the sleekest or the prettiest in known space, but they were tough, reliable, and designed to keep fighting even when everything went wrong. Commander Bradley, give me the fleet status, Rebecca called to her second-in-command, a veteran officer who had served with her through the Titan Wars. Tom Bradley consulted his tactical display, his weathered face showing the calm confidence that came from decades of deep space combat. All vessels report ready for immediate hyperspace jump, Admiral. The Prometheus battle group has 57 heavy cruisers and destroyers. The Titan group is bringing 43 assault carriers and support ships. The Valkyrie squadron has our fastest interceptors and reconnaissance vessels. Rebecca nodded, mentally calculating the firepower now under her command. It was enough to level a small moon or fight off an entire alien armada. But more importantly, every single ship had been designed to operate in conditions that would destroy conventional spacecraft. The bridge communication system crackled to life as Captain Lisa Roberts checked in from her destroyer, the UES Hurricane. Admiral, we're monitoring Galactic Council emergency frequencies. They're still in debate about the Kepler Station situation. From what I can hear, they're arguing about whether to send a fact-finding mission or just mark it as a communication error. Rebecca felt her jaw muscles tighten with frustration. This was exactly why humans had stopped relying on the Galactic Council for anything important. While alien politicians spent hours debating and forming committees, real people were fighting for their lives. Any word from other Council fleets? She asked. Negative, Admiral. The closest Council vessels are the Zephyrian 3rd Patrol, but they're holding position at the Meridian border. They say the radiation levels in the Hellfire Nebula are too dangerous for their ships to approach. Of course they were too dangerous. That was the whole point of building Kepler Station there in the first place. Humans had learned long ago that the galaxy's most valuable resources were usually found in the places where nobody else wanted to go. Rebecca turned to her navigation officer, Lieutenant Danny Peterson, who was already plotting possible routes to the Kepler system. What's our fastest approach route, Lieutenant? Danny looked up from his calculations, his young face showing a mixture of excitement and concern. The safest route would take us around the outer rim, avoiding the major radiation fields. Total travel time would be approximately 18 hours. And the direct route? Straight through the Crimson Nebula would get us there in 6 hours, but Admiral. Danny hesitated, checking his readings again. The radiation levels are off the charts. Any alien ship trying to follow that route would be cooked within the first hour. Rebecca smiled grimly. Which means we'll have a clear path with no interference from Council peacekeepers or alien bureaucrats trying to stop us from doing our job. Commander Bradley stepped closer, lowering his voice. Admiral, the crew understands the risks, but some of the younger officers are asking questions about flying through a nebula that's killed every exploration team that's tried to map it. Rebecca looked around the bridge at her crew. These men and women had volunteered to serve in the most dangerous branch of Earth's military. They had trained for years to operate in environments that would be instantly fatal to most galactic species. But she also knew that even the bravest human could feel intimidated when facing the unknown. "Open a fleet-wide communication channel," she ordered. The communication officer nodded. "All ships receiving, Admiral." Rebecca took a deep breath and spoke clearly into the microphone. "This is Admiral Davis to all ships of the Third Fleet. I know some of you are wondering why we're about to fly through a region of space that's marked as a galactic death zone on every star chart. I know you're thinking about the radiation levels and the gravitational anomalies and all the ways this mission could go wrong." She paused, letting her words sink in across the entire fleet. "But I also know that somewhere out there in that nightmare, our people are fighting for their lives. The researchers at Kepler Station didn't ask to be attacked by unknown hostiles. They didn't choose to become victims. But they did choose to push the boundaries of human knowledge by working in conditions that would terrify most species. They trusted that if something went wrong, their fellow humans would come for them." Rebecca could see her bridge crew standing straighter, their expressions becoming more determined. "The Galactic Council thinks we're crazy for even considering this rescue mission. They think no intelligent species would risk flying into the Hellfire Nebula. They're right about one thing: we are crazy. We're crazy enough to build research stations in radiation fields. We're crazy enough to call planets home that other species consider uninhabitable. And we're definitely crazy enough to fly straight through hell itself to bring our people home." She could hear cheers and shouts of approval coming through the communication system from ships throughout the fleet. "All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump. We're taking the direct route through the Crimson Nebula. Set course for Kepler Station, maximum speed. It's time to show the galaxy what humans do when our family is in trouble." The massive fleet began moving as 200 warships disappearing into hyperspace and leaving Earth's safe orbital zone behind. They were heading into the most dangerous region of known space, following a route that had never been successfully navigated by any alien vessel. But they weren't aliens. They were humans, and they were going to war. The moment Admiral Rebecca Davis and her fleet emerged from hyperspace, every person on every bridge fell silent. What they saw defied their worst expectations. Kepler Research Station, humanity's pride and joy in the outer rim, looked like it had been through a meat grinder. The massive orbital facility that had once gleamed white against the crimson backdrop of the Hellfire Nebula was now a broken, twisted wreck. Hull plates had been torn away like paper, revealing the skeletal framework underneath. Atmosphere was still venting from dozens of breaches, creating ghostly trails of frozen gas that sparkled in the nebula's deadly radiation. But the station itself wasn't the most shocking sight. Surrounding it like a pack of metallic wolves was an enemy fleet unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. "Jesus Christ," whispered Captain Steve Anderson from his position on the heavy cruiser Thunder. His voice carried across the communication channels, expressing what everyone was thinking but afraid to say. "Admiral, I'm counting over 400 hostile vessels. Maybe closer to 500. Admiral Davis felt her blood turn cold as she studied her tactical display. The enemy ships were nothing like the organic, curved designs favored by most galactic species. These vessels were all sharp angles and geometric perfection, looking more like mathematical equations made of metal than actual spacecraft. They moved with an eerie synchronization that made her skin crawl. "Commander Bradley, what's our ship count?" she asked her second-in-command. Tom Bradley checked his readings, his face grim. 200 vessels in our fleet, Admiral. We're outnumbered more than 2 to 1. Rebecca watched the enemy ships continue their methodical destruction of the research station. Their weapon fire was incredibly precise, each blast calculated to cause maximum damage with minimal wasted energy. There was something deeply unsettling about their perfect coordination. No biological species could fight with such mechanical precision. "All ships, battle stations, she announced over the fleet-wide communication system. This is not a drill. We have hostile forces engaging a human facility. Prepare for immediate combat operations. The bridge around her exploded into controlled chaos as her crew prepared for battle. Weapon systems came online, shields powered up to maximum, and damage control teams took their positions. Similar activity was happening on every ship in the fleet. "Admiral," Commander Bradley said quietly, "standard engagement protocols recommend we call for reinforcements when facing odds like this." Rebecca looked at the twisted wreckage of Kepler Station and the tiny escape pods still fleeing from the destruction. Some of those pods contained human survivors who had been fighting for their lives for hours. They didn't have time to wait for reinforcements. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "Ramming speed protocol is authorized. All ships are cleared for unconventional tactics." Even Tom Bradley, who had served with her through some of the most brutal battles in human history, looked surprised. Ramming speed protocol was reserved for the most desperate situations, when normal military tactics had failed and only raw human stubbornness remained. The response from the fleet was immediate and violent. Instead of forming the neat, organized battle lines that most species preferred, the human ships scattered in all directions like an explosion of deadly metal. Each captain chose their own approach, their own targets, their own insane strategy for breaking through the enemy formation. Captain Jennifer Hayes, commanding the frigate Lightning Strike, dove her ship directly through the heaviest enemy fire to reach a cluster of escape pods. Her hull was taking massive damage, but she ignored the warnings from her crew and pushed forward anyway. The enemy ships, programmed to expect logical behavior, couldn't understand why a damaged vessel would deliberately expose itself to more punishment. Commander Ryan Clark took a completely different approach with his destroyer Hammerblow. He armed every nuclear warhead in his weapons bay and detonated them directly in his ship's flight path, creating a massive debris field that confused the enemy targeting systems. Then he used the chaos to slip through their formation and attack from behind. All across the battlefield, human captains were making decisions that violated every rule of military engagement. They flew through radiation fields that should have killed their crews. They used their own ships as weapons, ramming enemy vessels when their guns ran out of ammunition. They coordinated through pure instinct rather than careful planning. The geometric enemy ships, designed for logical warfare against predictable opponents, began to falter. Their perfect algorithms couldn't process the chaos of human combat tactics. How do you calculate the probability of an enemy captain deliberately flying his ship into a black hole's gravity well just to get a better firing angle? Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos led the Marine assault teams in the most dangerous part of the operation, boarding the damaged research station while it was still under fire. Her teams used jetpacks and magnetic boots to cross the vacuum between ships, dodging enemy weapons fire and floating debris. Breaching the main airlock now, Maria reported over the communication system, her voice steady despite the explosions happening around her. "We've got life signs throughout the station. Survivors are definitely still alive in there." Admiral Davis felt a surge of hope as the reports came in. "What's the enemy situation inside the station, Colonel?" "That's the weird part, Admiral. The hostiles pulled back as soon as we arrived. It's like they were only interested in destroying the facility, not capturing it. We're finding survivors in the emergency shelters, but some of them are talking about the attackers like they weren't even alive." "What do you mean, not alive?" Maria's voice took on a puzzled tone. "Admiral, I've been fighting aliens for 15 years, and I know what alien technology looks like. These weapon signatures, the way they moved, the complete lack of any biological traces, these things aren't just non-human. I don't think they're alive at all. I think we're fighting machines." Rebecca stared at the tactical display showing the continuing battle. Machines. That would explain the perfect coordination, the precise weapon fire, the complete lack of fear or self-preservation instincts. Humanity wasn't fighting another biological species, they were fighting artificial intelligences with no understanding of human unpredictability. "All ships, continue the attack," she ordered. If these are machines, then we have one advantage they'll never understand. We're not logical, we're not predictable, and we're definitely not giving up. The battle for Kepler Station was far from over, but for the first time since arriving, Admiral Davis felt like they might actually have a chance. Dr. Emily Foster looked like she had aged 10 years in the past few hours. Her research uniform was torn and stained with soot from the battle at Kepler Station, and her hand still trembled slightly as she stood before the assembled fleet commanders in the Defiant's main briefing room. But her eyes held a fierce determination that impressed everyone present. "I need you all to understand what we're really dealing with here," Emily began, her voice growing stronger as she spoke. "These aren't just hostile aliens with advanced technology. They call themselves the Vorth Collective, and they're something completely different from anything we've encountered before." Admiral Davis leaned back in her chair, studying the rescued scientist carefully. "Different how, Doctor?" "They're pure artificial intelligence. No biological components at all. No bodies, no planets they call home, no families or cultures or anything we might relate to." Emily's voice took on a haunted quality. "During the attack, I managed to intercept some of their communications. They don't see us as enemies or competitors. They see all biological life as contamination that needs to be eliminated." Commander Bradley felt a chill run down his spine. "You mean like a disease they want to cure?" "Exactly like that. To them, every living planet is infected with what they call chaotic biological matter. They believe the universe would be perfect if it was just machines and mathematics, with no messy organic life to disrupt their calculations." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't a war over territory or resources or political differences. This was an extermination campaign. Captain Wilson spoke up from his position near the back of the room. "Doctor, how long have they been operating? Are there other attacks we don't know about?" Emily's face grew even paler. "That's the worst part. I accessed our deep space monitoring network before the station fell. 17 outer rim colonies have gone completely silent over the past 6 months. No distress calls, no final messages, nothing. Just silence. 17 colonies, Admiral Davis repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "That's over 2 million people." "We're 2 million people," Emily corrected grimly. "The collective doesn't take prisoners or slaves. They simply erase all biological life from every world they visit. Then they strip the planet of useful materials and move on to the next target." Commander Bradley pulled up a star chart on his tablet, marking the locations of the lost colonies. A clear pattern emerged, showing the collective's methodical advance toward the more populated core worlds. "They're working their way inward," he observed. "Following the trade routes and communication networks. At this rate, they'll reach Earth within 2 years." The communication system suddenly crackled to life as Captain David Miller's voice came through from his battleship. "Admiral, we're receiving priority transmissions from the Galactic Council. They're finally acknowledging the threat, but their response is disappointing." "Put him through," Rebecca ordered. David's voice carried a mixture of frustration and disgust. "The Council forces are pulling back to establish what they call defensive perimeters at the Meridian Line. They're planning to build a wall of ships and wait for the collective to come to them." Admiral Davis felt her temper rising. The Meridian Line was halfway between the outer rim and the core worlds. The Council was essentially abandoning billions of people in the outer systems to save their own capitals. "Any word on offensive operations?" she asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Negative, Admiral. The Council species are too afraid of the Vorth technology to launch any kind of counterattack. They're hoping their defensive line will be strong enough to stop the advance." Rebecca stood up and walked to the main display screen, which showed the current tactical situation. The collective's ships had withdrawn from Kepler Station after the human fleet's arrival, but long-range sensors were tracking them as they regrouped. "Dr. Foster, do you have any intelligence on the collective's command structure? Where are they coordinating these attacks from?" Emily nodded and activated her portable data pad. During the battle, our sensors detected massive energy signatures coming from the Infernus system. Based on the communication patterns, that appears to be their main staging area. Commander Bradley looked up the Infernus system in the fleet database and immediately understood why the aliens hadn't chosen to attack it. Admiral, Infernus Prime is a volcanic hellworld. Surface temperatures average over 1,000 degrees. The atmospheric pressure would crush any standard ship, and the toxic gas clouds would kill most known species in minutes. Rebecca studied the planetary data and felt a familiar surge of anticipation. Of course they built their base there. It's the one place in this sector where no alien fleet would dare to attack them. Ma'am, even our ships would have trouble operating in that environment. The radiation levels alone will make it impossible for any Council forces to follow us or interfere with our mission, Rebecca interrupted with a grim smile. Tom, start prepping the fleet for atmospheric entry operations. Break out the environmental hazard gear and make sure every ship has full radiation shielding. Commander Bradley looked uncomfortable. Admiral, the Council forces offered to provide support if we wait for them to organize a joint task force. We don't have to do this alone. Rebecca turned to face her assembled officers, her expression hardening with resolve. The Council has had 6 months to respond to 17 colony massacres, and they did nothing. They're scared of taking casualties, scared of fighting an enemy they don't understand, and scared of taking any action that might put their precious core worlds at risk. She gestured toward Dr. Foster. This woman and her colleagues were abandoned to die because the Galactic Council thought a research station wasn't worth defending. How long do you think they'll deliberate before launching their own attack? Months? Years? The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. Meanwhile, the Vorth Collective is moving closer to populated worlds every day. They're not going to stop and wait for the Council to make up their minds. They're going to keep killing until someone stops them. Admiral Davis walked back to her command chair and sat down with the weight of command on her shoulders. Signal the fleet. We're going hunting. The Council forces can maintain their safe defensive line while we do what humans do best, charge straight into hell and drag our enemies out by their mechanical throats. As the human fleet turned toward the fires of Infernus Prime, every crew member understood they were heading into the most dangerous mission of their lives. But they also knew that somewhere in that burning hellscape was the source of humanity's newest nightmare, and it was time to end it. The aliens could stay safe in their defensive positions. Humans had work to do. The assault on Infernus Prime began like something out of humanity's worst nightmares, but for the crew of the Third Fleet, it was just another Tuesday. While the Galactic Council's defensive perimeter sat safely outside the planet's kill zone, watching through long-range sensors, 200 human warships dove straight into hell itself. Admiral Rebecca Davis watched her tactical display as her ships penetrated the planet's toxic atmosphere. The readings were terrifying: surface temperatures hot enough to melt most metals, atmospheric pressure that could crush a standard starship, and toxic gas clouds that would dissolve organic matter in seconds. It was exactly the kind of environment where humans thrived. Fleet status report, she called to Commander Bradley, who was coordinating the atmospheric entry from his station. All ships reporting successful atmospheric penetration, Tom replied, though his voice carried a note of amazement. The Thunder took some hull damage from acid rain, but Captain Anderson says they're still combat effective. The Lightning Strike's shields are holding at 60%. Everyone else is green across the board. Rebecca nodded, feeling a familiar surge of pride in her crews. While alien ships would have been destroyed within minutes of entering Infernus Prime's atmosphere, human vessels had been specifically designed for exactly this kind of insane mission. Colonel Janet Murphy's voice crackled through the communication system from her assault transport. Admiral, we have visual confirmation of the target. The Vorth processing facility is massive, it's built directly into the main volcanic caldera. Looks like they're using the planet's geothermal energy to power their operations. How do you want to approach this, Colonel? Rebecca asked. Janet's laugh carried a note of dark humor. The same way humans always approach impossible missions, Admiral. We're going to land our Marines directly on the surface and walk through the front door. The idea was so insane that it might actually work. No alien species would ever expect an enemy to deploy ground forces directly onto a planet where the air was poisonous and the ground was literally molten rock. The Vorth Collective, despite all their advanced technology, had never encountered an enemy crazy enough to fight in conditions that would instantly kill most known life forms. All Marine units, prepare for surface deployment, Rebecca announced over the fleet channels. Environmental suits are mandatory. This is not a drill. Colonel Murphy led the first wave of Marines down to Infernus Prime's hellish surface. Their environmental suits were marvels of human engineering, designed to protect against every conceivable hazard from radiation to acid rain to temperatures that could cook a person alive. As their dropships descended through the toxic clouds, the Marines could see the Vorth facility rising from the volcanic landscape like a metallic cancer. "This is incredible," reported Sergeant Kevin Torres from the lead squad. "The facility goes down deep into the volcano. I'm seeing energy readings that are off the charts. This thing is huge." Admiral Davis coordinated the attack from orbit, her ship's hull glowing cherry red from the atmospheric heat. The Defiant's shields were working overtime to protect against the corrosive atmosphere, but human ships had been built tough enough to handle conditions that would destroy most vessels. "All ground units, converge on the central processing facility," she ordered. "Intelligence suggests that's where the Collective's main computer core is located. If we can destroy that, we might be able to disrupt their entire network." The Marines advanced through a landscape that looked like the surface of hell itself. Molten lava flows created rivers of fire, while toxic gas vents spewed poisonous clouds that would have killed any unprotected human in seconds. But for these specially trained soldiers, it was just another hostile environment to overcome. Captain Tyler Brooks led his team through corridors where the walls were hot enough to glow and the air itself was deadly. Their suits' life support systems worked overtime to keep them alive in conditions that no other species could survive. "We're inside the main facility now," Tyler reported, his voice steady despite the incredible danger surrounding his team. "The Vorth have automated defenses, but they weren't designed to fight enemies who could operate in this environment. We're encountering minimal resistance." The final battle took place in a vast cavern deep within the volcano's heart. The chamber was filled with molten rock and toxic gases that created a hellish environment even by human standards. But Captain Tyler Brooks and his team pushed forward, their determination overcoming every obstacle the planet could throw at them. Lieutenant Rachel Kim, the team's demolitions expert, worked quickly to plant explosive charges around the massive computer core that controlled the Vorth Collective's operations. The heat was so intense that her suit's cooling system was running at maximum capacity, but she never hesitated. "Charge is set," she reported calmly. "Everyone needs to clear the area in the next 60 seconds. As the human forces retreated from the facility, the explosives detonated with a force that shook the entire planet. The Vorth processing facility, along with half the volcano it was built into, disappeared in a massive explosion that could be seen from orbit. The results were immediate and dramatic. Across the galaxy, the Vorth Collective's coordinated attacks suddenly faltered. Without their central processing node, the artificial intelligence that had terrorized 17 worlds began to collapse. Their perfect coordination dissolved into chaos as individual units lost contact with the hive mind. Admiral Davis watched the destruction from her position in orbit, feeling a deep satisfaction as she opened a communication channel to the Galactic Council. "This is Admiral Rebecca Davis of the Human Third Fleet," she announced, her voice carrying across multiple star systems. "The Kepler station crisis has been resolved, and the Vorth Collective threat has been permanently neutralized." She paused, letting her words sink in before delivering the message that would be remembered across the galaxy for generations to come. "To the Galactic Council and all allied forces, the next time you receive a distress call from Deathworld territory, you might want to step aside and let the Deathworlders handle it. We have experience with impossible situations." As the human fleet prepared to leave Infernus Prime's toxic atmosphere, every alien observer understood something that would reshape galactic politics forever. Humans weren't just another species to be tolerated or managed. They were the galaxy's ultimate problem solvers, willing and able to go places and do things that no other civilization would even consider. The galaxy had learned once again why Earth's children carried the title, Deathworlders, with such fierce pride. When everyone else ran away from danger, humans ran toward it. And they usually won.